Welcome to the Los Angeles City Section Baseball Podcast. Connor Morissette and Alex Scar here with you from El Camino Real High. Alex, Open Division Baseball. It's a West Valley League Final Four. You saw El Camino Real beat Roosevelt today. What were your takeaways?
Well, I think we could say we saw it coming. In our predictions, we had the semifinal picked. What I saw today, I saw El Camino and Roosevelt in maybe the best high school baseball game I've seen all season.
Great.
And maybe one of the best I've ever seen. Went all the way down 10 innings. Adam Christopher wins it on a walk-off single in center field after throwing 4 shutout innings in relief. So the kid, I had an interview with him. You'll see that on Twitter. I mean, once that base hit, left the infield, floated into center field, his teammates mobbed him. They ripped his jersey off. It's a ton of fun. El Camino, I've got them in my finals, but Cleveland, they really took it to Banning. We're going to see how those two teams battle it out. Remember, El Camino got swept by Cleveland earlier this season, so that's going to be pretty interesting. And then Chatsworth just showing, hey, they're your champion, so they're going to be a really tough team. And you took in some Birmingham today.
Yep, so Birmingham beats Kennedy 5-3. A really costly error for Kennedy really hurt them in that game. Led to 2 runs directly, and then later in the inning, Johnny Tincher hit an RBI double, a 2 RBI double actually, so it led to 4 runs. Just, tough break. But I talked to coaches after, and they said, that's playoff baseball. You got to take what you can get, and sometimes it's an error. And, hey, Birmingham advances, and in a few weeks, people will forget about the Kennedy error, and it'll all be about the West Valley League teams in the Final Four. But to your point earlier, want to give you credit. You've correctly picked every Open Division game. We both had the semifinals right, so if I can toot my own horn for a second, I will. But you got there by predicting the first round perfectly. I was 1-3 in the first round. But, hey, we both got to this point, so that feels good. But for the second year in a row now, all West Valley League, last 4. And I think the really interesting games, I mean, they're both going to be great. But the fact that Cleveland swept El Camino Real, no one would have predicted that. And now you're going out on a limb and going to pick Elko. I have Cleveland, so we'll see what happens. But, I mean, it's tough to beat a team 3 times.
Yeah, it's really tough to beat a team 3 times. El Camino's hot. Cleveland's hot. I mean, both these teams finished the season playing really, really well. I had picked Elko about 3 weeks ago or so. I thought they could be city champs. My pick officially is Birmingham, but I have Birmingham beating El Camino in that city final. Cleveland, I've gotten some ire from some of the Cleveland fans, the Cleveland coach, for not giving them the respect that they deserve. They're a heck of a baseball team. They had Banning. We've talked a lot about Anthony Hoya. He's their stud. They went out and they kind of took it to him. They only scored 3 runs, but they really pressed him. He had the bases loaded a couple of times. He had to kind of wiggle out of trouble. So Cleveland, they're going to be a huge test for El Camino. Thing is, does Elko remember that week? Absolutely. They don't like getting swept. This is the team to beat here. They've won the last 2 of the last 3 city titles, so this is a team that wants to win. I'm picking Elko in that game, but you've got Cleveland, and that's not a bad choice.
Yeah, so setting the record straight, we have the last Final Four, or the correct semifinal, I should say. But we're totally different with who wins and who wins the championship. So I have Cleveland taking on Chatsworth in the championship and Chatsworth winning. You have the opposite, El Camino Real taking on Birmingham and Birmingham winning. So, those are our picks, and we'll see what happens with that. But quickly, taking it back to this round, so DJ Virginia didn't pitch for Birmingham, and that was something that we thought we might see him because he was a senior, and, you want to throw out a senior, be confident. But Albert Garcia got the start and did well, and then 2 other Birmingham pitchers came in relief. But the talk is that Virginia's going to start the game at USC against Chatsworth, so he'll get his opportunity. But I was a bit surprised that he didn't start this game.
Yeah, he's got a week now to prepare and think about it. You save Virginia, he throws his bullpen side session, he stays fresh. Now he's got an entire extra week of rest. You've got Albert Garcia and Giannis, who stayed fresh today by pitching. Actually, I don't think Giannis just warmed up. He didn't actually pitch.
No, he got in there for a little bit.
Did he get in there?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got Giannis, who's been fresh. Albert Garcia continues to be pretty good. So Virginia, I don't think it's a slight. I mean, you've got a fantastic pitcher in Bert Garcia. Throw him out there. Now Virginia gets the ball. He gets to go pitch on the mound off of USC. That's going to be a lot of fun for him. The senior earns it, and if he pitches well, there's a day at Dodger Stadium waiting for him.
Chatsworth, they scored the most runs in this round, 6 against San Fernando. Is that because San Fernando maybe isn't quite as good as some of these other teams, or is that because Chatsworth offense is the best of this group, or am I looking too much into one game?
Well, I've thought Chatsworth has one of the deepest lineups here in the city section. I said it last week. Alex Malone's one of my favorite hitters here in the city section. Big left-handed kid, really puts a hurt on the ball. I like that guy a lot, but the whole lineup really produces. I've talked to Miguel Marin before, but also it's the pitching staff. It's kind of shallow. They only have a couple of arms, but if you can go and get 6 strong innings out of Gabe Achicaro, something like that, and then you score 6 runs, Not a lot of teams are going to beat you. As for San Fernando, I think their lineup's on the thinner side. I know you've talked to Villagrán, who's been a really, really good hitter, and they've got some guys over there that can bring the sticks. I just think Sanford, when it came down to it, lineup was just a bit thin, and Chatsworth, no shame in losing to them, man. That's one of the best teams here in the city. So if you're looking at your final, Chatsworth-Cleveland, I'm really excited because that kind of goes, it's a different matchup. El Camino and Birmingham, I think, with Birmingham being the defending city title champions and Elko winning the previous two, that to me is kind of the heavyweight matchup. I'm excited for whatever happens.
So that's one of them. And then the other one, Cleveland, they win today against Banning. It was 0-0 for a lot of that game, and then eventually Anthony Hoya, the Banning pitcher, got into some trouble, and Cleveland managed to score 3 runs. Banning doesn't score a run. That was kind of the thought with Banning. They got great pitching, but is their offense good enough?
Right.
And today it wasn't. But Cleveland, the thing that they've done all season is find ways to win ball games. They do it again. They're into the last 4, and they'll play El Camino Real, who they swept. And like I said earlier, it's just so hard to beat a team 3 times, but I like Cleveland because they win games. You don't know how, but they do it.
Yeah, Sid Lopez may not like me a whole lot because I didn't pick Cleveland to win, but he's a heck of a coach. He really, really is. To be able to score runs when you don't have thumpers in the middle of a lineup, you got to get creative. You have to manufacture.
Yeah, they do a lot of suicide squeezes to try to get a guy in from third. Yeah,
right. You bunt a guy over, you got to hit and run. You're moving guys over. You're trying to get them in. It's a lot of station-to-station baseball. They're not afraid to take the extra base. Pitching's been really, really good, and defense has been really, really good. So Cleveland, I mean, they're led by a great coach. They got a really, really solid group of kids that now are fired up to win. I wouldn't want to face them if I were El Camino.
And then El Camino, the last team, and kind of the opposite from Cleveland. Elko, you don't know what team is going to show up. Cleveland in the West Valley League, at least, was very consistent. El Camino Real had highs and lows. Now that it's the playoffs, you like to think that they'll be motivated and they'll be high, every single game. But there have been times this season where you look at the box score and you think, El Camino Real, that they lost like that, and you just kind of shake your head a little bit. I'm not going to say that's going to happen against Cleveland, but they've been inconsistent this year, and we'll see if they can, avoid that against Cleveland. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, Roosevelt kind of reminds me of a team like Cleveland. They're going to be really annoying. They're going to do a lot of different things to win. They're not afraid to throw a guy 7 or 8 innings in relief. They're going to do whatever it takes. So to be able to come out here and win this game against a really tough, motivated Roosevelt team who brought the Roosevelt fans, who were getting in it with the other fans, that win, I think, is a statement. Now they're comfortable. They're hot. They just had a huge walk-off win and going 10 innings. Anytime you win that, it's a morale booster. The locker room gets tighter. The kids are just feeling it. When it comes down to what team is hotter, I don't think you can pick one. What team's more complete, more balanced? I don't know if I could pick one. I think really, like you said, it just comes up to who shows up that day.
Let's look at D1. So admittedly, our focus today was on the Open Division. That's where we were both at, but we kept tabs on the D1 games all day long. Carson squeaks past Bell. That's a 1-8 matchup. Carson wins 3-2 against Bell in a game that I don't think we really expected it to be so close, but maybe we should have because Bell's played a lot of teams close. They beat Verdugo Hills earlier this year. They're a good squad, but Carson gets a win against them, and we like Carson to win the whole thing.
Right.
So it was important that they won for our predictions, but I got to give Bell credit for keeping it so close. I believe it was a walk-off for Carson, correct?
It was, yeah. Hey, respect Bell, man. We talked about them. We were picking the game between Bell and Dorsey. I said Bell's going to give teams trouble. I had a feeling they were going to beat Dorsey just because I didn't quite know what Dorsey was going to bring. But I thought, hey, they're going to play Carson. They're going to be really annoying. Carson cannot take them lightly. I'm sure they didn't, but Bell really came to play. As you mentioned, it was a walk-off sacrifice fly from Emilio Roman, but his brother Lorenzo Roman had 2 hits and 2 RBIs, so a brotherly affair there for the Carson Colts. They come out on top, winning 3-2, and now they move on to the semifinals where we thought they'd be all year long.
Absolutely. They'll play Marshall. More on that in a little bit. Other game, on the other side of the bracket, number 2 Taft squeaks by number 10 Narbonne 7-6. And before we get into that game, I want to give a quick shout out to the Gauchos. I saw them play Hamilton on Tuesday, and they rallied back, ended up winning the game in the 7th inning, so congratulations to them. But that was a team with 8 wins on the year, kind of a tough time in the Marine League a little bit. They were in a lot of games, but lost a lot of games, only had 8 wins going into that one. And it would have been really easy to give up, kind of fold, say we're a young group. A lot of us will be back next year. Hamilton's a senior-dominated team. It's not our year. But they stayed in the game. They ended up winning the game. And I just thought that their ability to kind of overcome a tough season and win a playoff game was inspirational, and they did a really nice job. So I want to give them a quick shout-out. But today they fall short against Taft. And, Taft West Valley League tested, just a better team, even though they finished in the cellar of the West Valley League. Taft is still very, very talented, so I think Narbonne can hold their head very high that they were able to keep it so close with them, and it's a great season for them. They'll be back next year, a lot of young players.
Yeah, I think on the podcast last week, I called Narbonne battle tested.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a good way to describe them, because coming out of the Marine League, you play Carson, you play San Pedro. These are really tough teams. You got to play Banning, so you're going to finish 4th in the Marine League, and you're going to play some really, really good teams. Shout out to Narbonne for keeping it close, beating Hamilton, and then keeping it close here against Taft. But Howitt went 4 2/3 innings, got the win, struck out 8. Cameron Steele and Gamboa also had a pair of RBIs each. So all in all, a team effort there from Taft. Kind of getting a couple scares here early from some of these teams. We expected them to kind of go out and roll. We saw them have a little bit of tough time with Chavez early in those early innings when they played them earlier on Tuesday, and then Narbonne today really brought the wood and tried to get after him. Taft will now face Verdugo Hills next week.
Yeah, Verdugo rolled over Sylmar. That's the 6 seed beating the 3 seed, and we thought maybe those seeds should have been switched because Verdugo, I thought their resume was a little bit better than Sylmar's, and they dominated today, even though they were on the road 13-1 final. And, you know, what can you say about Verdugo? They have some good wins. They beat Carson. They've beaten Pauley this season. As a 6 seed, I think they have as good a chance as anyone to come out of D1 and win a city championship. They're led by Charlie Roca, who's a great player, leads the city section in homers. Nick Masamoto is a fantastic pitcher for them. The bottom of their lineup, there are a couple question marks there, but I think they're top-heavy enough to be real contenders here.
Yeah, forget the 6 seed. Honestly, I don't really understand why Verdugo was a 6. I thought they could be a 1 or a 2. Carson and Taft still deserve the seeds that they got, but Verdugo's been a darn good baseball team. As you mentioned, 13-1 victory over Sylmar. Goki, Charlie Roca, Dakota Gray, they all produced here in this game. Dakota Gray got hit by another pitch with the bases loaded to drive it and run. So, hey,
second time this year.
Yeah, kids got a knack for driving and runs the old-fashioned way. This is a team that hits. I don't think I've seen a team, now they do kind of play in a hitter's ballpark, but I don't think I've seen a team just show up and hit the baseball quite like Verdugo Hills. Taft's going to have a really hard time. They better show up and throw.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how that game plays out. And then on the other side of the bracket, who will Carson take on? We were wrong with our prediction. We both thought Venice would beat Marshall, but it's Marshall that beats Venice. Marshall, the 4 seed, Venice, the 5, a 4-3 ball game. We thought Josiah Morrissey was going to be pitching for Venice. He ended up having some rotator cuff issues, so he's not pitching anymore. And take nothing away from Marshall, but with him on the mound, I think that would have been a different game. But, you know, you got to go up against who you go up against. And on this occasion, it wasn't Morrissey. So Marshall, they move on, and they will play Carson now. And, hey, I'd give them a chance against Carson. I don't think it's a done deal that Carson moves on to the championship. I think that's going to be a close game.
No, I mean, Bell gave Carson a hard time. Why can't Marshall? Marshall beat Venice. We're talking about Josiah Morrissey. I don't think it's anything really serious, but the kid's a junior. He's playing scout ball this summer. There's really no sense. I mean, yeah, you want to win a city title, but there's no sense ruining a kid's arm if, you know, he's got any kind of nagging issues. So I'm sure he'll get better. Bless up to him. But Sam Meyer, shout out to Sam Meyer over there at Marshall. Four innings, no hits in relief, or no earned runs in relief, I should say, and a double scoring the winning run. So Sam Meyer really doing it all there for the Barristers. And now they get Carson, where we haven't seen Marshall play any baseball, really. We've talked a lot about Carson. We think they are far and away the best team in that side, but Marshall's really going to push them. I still like Carson in this one. I like Carson to win the whole darn thing, but Marshall's going to be a really tough team to beat.
I agree with you. I'm going to stay consistent with the Carson pick. I think the game we can have a better discussion on is Taft, the 2 seed, against Verdugo Hills, the 6 seed. That's going to be at USC next week. Taft, it's a good team, but they've had a down year. You know, finishing in the bottom of the West Valley League. Verdugo Hills, they seem to be really hot right now, scoring 13 on the road against Sylmar. You mentioned the hitter's park that they play in, absolutely, but the fact that they were able to score 13 against Sylmar, I think that's a good sign for them at USC. And Taft, they gave up some runs today against Narbonne. Verdugo Hills lineup is a little bit better than Narbonne, so I like Verdugo in that one. I'm sticking with that pick.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this game's played at SC at Dedeaux Field. No one's going to hit a ball out of there.
No.
I don't think anybody's going to be hitting home runs there.
What about Roca? You don't give him a chance?
Kid's got power, but it's going to be later in the evening. It's going to be one of those cool nights that we have here in the spring in LA. I would be surprised if the kid launches one out. Not to say he doesn't have power, but it's going to be tough.
If there's anyone who could, it would be him.
If there's anybody who could, it would be Charlie
But
Roca.
you're right. It's going to be a big test.
I would feel like this is going to be, let's hit doubles, right? Instead of hitting pop flies at every other park, they're going to be caught for outs. Let's drive the ball in the gap. Sylmar is one of those bigger parks. I've played there before. The field's kind of a rectangle, so center field's way out, like 400 and some feet. you're not hitting the ball out of there very often either. So for them to score 13 runs just means they're piling on. They're making it really tough on Sylmar pitchers. Sylmar was a funny team. I'm not sure why they were that 3 seed. We talked about them. We had them early in our top 10, in our first top 10.
Kind of fell off a bit.
But just an up and down year for the Spartans. Really quite sure what they had there at the end of the season. Verdugo really just stormed out of that league and stole it. So they're kind of the talk of the town right now. But now they get Taft. And I like Taft in this game because they played a tough West Valley League schedule.
They're battle-tested.
Exactly. Battle-tested, go back to the old cliche, but it's really hard to judge. We can't exactly say, hey, they've had a terrible year. They've played really good teams. They're just not as good as some of these other West Valley League teams. You put them in the Marine League, they're going to finish 2nd or 3rd. You put them in some of these other leagues, the Eastern League, the East Valley League, they're going to try to push for that #1 spot. So Taft's a really, really good team. I'm still taking Taft. I'm sticking with the guys over there. I think they're more of a complete team when it comes to the pitching staff. I know we've talked a ton about Matsumoto. We watched him. He's awesome. Kid keeps hitters off balance all day long. Good fastball, good changeup. Really, really annoying, tough to hit. But I just see if they get to Matsumoto early, I don't know who comes in after that. I would feel more confident with the guys that Taft has, seeing they've got a big left-hander who throws really well. I've seen Cameron Steele pitch really well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get to Matsumoto early. If they can push him out of the game, score some runs, we're going to see Taft, I think, run away with this one. Matsumoto can shut them down, and Verdugo, on the flip side, gets 4 or 5 runs for him. Pack it in.
For Alex Garr, I'm Connor Morissette. We'll see you next time.